Couldn't ask for a better birthday present. That's why they're not the greatest for this application, but the overall mission here is to, we've got about 15 stakes jammed into the ice. An old unit that was ancient when I stole it 22 years ago. I mean, if you spend all your time packing for hurricanes every moment, you never get anything done. See a pole there and a pole there. Each of those is put in a different year. So the poles there, that furthest one was where that other one is, the furthest up ones, but the glacier keeps moving down. So we keep putting new poles in. You can see the lighter color rock right up there. That was all ice, these ice veneers. It's super tricky. So like right there, that's 30, 35 centimeters. But if I push it harder, I get down to 90. All this ice is starting to cool from the top down. That's exactly what we measured in the lower cirque, was that process. This was all ice. Keith skied that. You can't ski it anymore. There's no snow left, no ice left. Couldn't ask for a better birthday. Well, I just landed on McCall Glacier. It's a beautiful day, beautiful flight up here. Reasonably smooth landing. Couldn't ask for a better birthday present. Just landed. It's snow is must have just snowed here a couple days ago, because well, you can just kind of tell mountains don't have much on it, and the snow sticks a little bit longer on the glacier itself. A little bit of a breeze. Great for landing though. Just checking things out. Haven't been here since May. That was a really short trip. Let me see if I can turn this around. Oh, maybe I can't. Can I? Who knows? Well, Mount McCall behind me. Flame. Upper Cirque. And down Glacier. Weather station over there with various accumulated debris. And I might fly out of here this time. We'll see how the weather goes. Well, I should start unpacking, tie the plane down, and get to work. I decided to try and do video stuff this time because we'll see how it works, but I may have internet this time so I can actually show you what's going on almost in real time. Okay. There we are. So I just came down to check out my my ski tracks here as I landed. I'm standing right where I touched down. That little blemish there next to my footprints is where the tail touched first. So I landed with the stallhorn wailing and I just kind of cruised into the slope. And my intended touchdown was that white strip right there, which is a tiny little crevasse, nothing to be concerned about, but pretty much nailed it. A few feet short, would have scratched and squinted. Close enough for government work, as they say. And then I came to a stop kind of where the plane is, but facing the other way, and I gave it power about there to go up and make a button hook to come face the right way, so that we do get a few feet of snow here. I'm at least pointed the right direction. So I don't know, maybe I can measure it out later, but I doubt it's 200 feet. Maybe 150 by the time I was stopped, and I was holding power too, so probably could have touched down even sooner. You could see here, tail wheel, it's keeping the tail wheel up a little bit. You can see here I bounced with the main ski over this a little bit, so I still had some power here. And then, yeah, right about here where the tail wheel digs in is where I pulled it off. That's our weather station, etc. Some old barrels from the 50s, actually from the 70s rather, or late 60s probably. And then, yeah, beautiful day, a little breezy, but that's okay. And that's how we do it. When we do it right anyway. Okay. So it's about 11 o'clock. I landed about 45 minutes ago. Scoped a few things out. Now what I'm doing is just putting a few quick anchors in, make sure the plane doesn't blow away. There's a bunch of rotten snow and ice and slush on the top. We got to scrape that away, so I shoveled a bunch of it. I already put in one screw. I'm going to put a second screw in. And between these two, it'll keep the tail in place. You know, just some rogue gust of wind comes and starts to slide the plane, and then it keeps sliding. Just want to prevent that from happening. Later tonight, I'll add some serious anchors. You know, these screws are meant to hold a climber, 200-pound climber, falling off something. This is a 2,000-pound plane. But really all we're trying to do is keep it from sliding. So I've screwed that in, then take some rope. I'm going to use two separate anchors. So I got a screw there, a screw here. Little shaft of ice comes out. I tried to pick it up, but didn't hang together. So this is one anchor, or one rope. Here I've got a tie down from the airplane. Let's see. And that'll work. So we wrap this around the tail. Thread it into our gizmo. Make sure we got it going the right way. Got it in. And there we go. Tighten it up. And that'll hold it. We'll put in the second one just for shits and giggles. Independent, so if one ice group grows out, you still have the other one. Let's see. Do a little climbers figure eight here. Harder to come undone. Clip it into the carabiner. Again around the tail. I use kind of a trucker's hitch. It's not really a trucker's hitch, but it's close enough. So these screws will last. Like, I really should keep on it like every day, because the sun will melt them out. That's why they're not the greatest for this application, but better than nothing. And other solutions are a lot more involved. So then, keep it from melting out, or slow it down anyway. Shovel some of this slush on it, keep the sunshine off. And there we go. Temporary anchors in place. Time to set up the tent. And then time for some science. If I can shut this off. It's all wet. I can't touch the power button. Just finished putting the anchors in the tail of the plane. Now I'm going to set up a tent. There's a weather station right here that's pretty well anchored. So normally what I do is anchor one end of the tent to this, then pull it out and anchor that way. So more or less assured it's not going to blow away. It might not be comfortable. In winter, this is a good deal. In winter, the snow's about this high. Summer, where we are right now, this is all kind of rotten ice. So, you know, camping just generally kind of sucks here. I've already kind of tried to smooth out the slush as best I can, but there's only so much you can do. After a day or two, I'm going to melt into it. Then the sun's going to make a pedestal. The pedestal's nice because it actually creates a little moat, like drainage. The tent shields the ice from melting. So the ice around it's melting down, so the edges of the tent melt down. So all the water, it's like a big gutter around the tent. Small things, huh? All right, I think it's about as good as I'm gonna get it. I like this tent. I've used it a long time. It's a single wall Stevenson tent. It's not freestanding. It's got these burly poles I really like. They're really hard to break. Can be done though. I forget the spec, but I know the whole thing, this is a giant tent, the whole thing weighs less than 4 pounds, which is really nice. I don't backpack with it, but for an airplane tent, it's awesome. I like to set up the tent kind of first thing so that if I'm out late or I'm having trouble of some kind, I've got a tent to come back to. I don't have to worry about setting up. I can just crawl in and pull up. But you make inside pretty later. So that's that. We just clip off that end, some ice screws, and we got a home away from home. Okay. Tent's a bit tied down. Plane's a bit tied down. I was up at 4. It's almost noon now. Time for some lunch and a little break. Enjoy the view. The view is set up for me, so I'm just going to show you here. Hey, you can't beat that for a lunchtime view, huh? I like to take burritos for lunch in the plane. Actually, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner when I'm napping. You start out frozen, I just keep them on the dash, don't thaw out. Obviously, by the time I'm ready to eat them, nice little pre-made Ziploc of its own. Stop eating, open back up. Super simple, vegan. Feels good. So while I'm eating, what I got to figure out is what to do next. The weather should hold. It's a little breezy, but it's fine. I could get, if I take the snow machines, which is always a mixed bag. If they break, then you got to deal with it. If I take a snow machine, if the surface conditions are good, I could probably get all the upper glacier done today. So that's the mass balance surveying. Maybe you can go to camp. Our camp is, so I camp down here when I'm flying, but I don't know if you can see right about there is where we camp when we're camping. So I've got a weather station up there. Do other things. But it's too much hassle for a shorter trip to lug everything up there, especially for walking. It's like, why bother? But for a bigger trip with more people, it's a lot more comfortable up there. It's dry, good view, sun all day, even at evening. But the overall mission here is to, I've got about 15 stakes jammed into the ice. I measure how much is sticking out of the ice or snow every time I'm here. That tells me whether it accumulated or lost ice or snow. Then I measure their position with a GPS, high resolution GPS, so I know where they are to about there. I can track their velocity over time. velocities are a really interesting story. I'll probably save it till later, but short answer is this: the glacier, as climate warms, this glacier and all these glaciers around here are getting colder. They're a very explainable process. As they get colder, something we've measured directly, they slow down. The ice deforms more slowly, and more importantly, the sliding that's happening on the bottom starts to stop, slows down. Because right now, when I started this project, the whole bed of the glacier was warm, right at the melting point, so it can melt around all the protuberances and rocks and sort of slip and slide. Now the bed of a lot of the glacier, not all of it yet, but a lot more of it, is cold, so it doesn't slide as much. And we can measure both the temperature and the change in speed in sliding from the surface. So this phase of the project, this is my 22nd year. This project started in 1957, before I was born. But this phase of the project is all about capturing essentially the dynamic demise of this glacier. So I'll show you later, but I've got a continuously recording GPS. Hopefully it's recording, we'll find out in a little bit. But I'll put a bunch of those up before the glacier stops sliding altogether, so I can learn more about the sliding dynamics and the sliding dynamics as the glacier freezes to the bottom. But for now, I'm going to have one of my birthday cookies. Turner made me a whole bunch of cookies for my birthday to take out here, so I can eat those, make a little list, and then start doing some science. Back up. So it's about an hour and a half later, maybe. What is it? 1:15, 1:20. Shuttled a bunch of stuff from the plane to the tent just to make a little bit more space and sort things out. I got the, see if you can see that. I got the snow machine, woke up, and I leave the snow machine on this platform, which, if I come back every year, works great. What happens is, you see that, if I don't come back every summer, the platform shades the ice, creates a pedestal, and makes everything cattywampus, and creates a little, anyway, everything worked out fine. Snow machine started first pull like always, didn't lose any oil or fuel. Dug into the cache. I got 2 sleds. I kind of make a burrito out of them and store stuff in there, like some electronics and steam drill and such like that. So right now I am preparing for my first science foray of the trip, and what I've got going is realized I left the battery for my base station GPS in the charger at home, so I did a little road warrioring here and configured some stuff. So I'm about to hook it up to an external battery. The base station stays put, that's why they call it a base station, and I run around with a rover. That's why they call it a rover, I guess. And up in the sky, there are satellites flying overhead, GPS satellites, American, Russian, Chinese, all kinds of people now. And those GPS, you probably know, satellites we're able to get our position, things like even like my watch, your phone, this kind of stuff. But those kind of positions are coarse, right? A few meters. What I want is like a few centimeters at most. To do that, the problem is, you see those clouds up there, right? This water vapor, there's just weird electrical stuff going up on higher. It's what creates the aurora in some sense. Anyway, the signals coming from the satellites get distorted by this ionosphere, water and whatever. So we don't know exactly what they are. And diabolical science, this is back when the military first launched these GPS satellites. They thought that they were going to have the only accurate GPS, right? They were going to let civilians use it, but you know, they're not going to have the good stuff. Well, these diabolical scientists figured out that even if they dither the signal, which is effectively what the atmosphere is doing anyway, if you set up a base station and you don't get too far from another, from it with your rover, all the distortions that are coming through from the sky are identical to both the base station and the rover. So in some sense, you don't care. The rover becomes basically an electronic tape measure and gives you accuracy like this, even if the military is trying to scramble it. So they gave that up after a while because thought, okay, everyone's figured this out. They spoofed our spoofing. So now this is the way it works. Now these corrections are, in most parts, in the civilized world where surveyors live and sleep anyway, these corrections are broadcast via cell. So you can walk around with this. You don't have to set up your own base. Base stations are just set up through cities and everywhere, most places, a lot of places. At least the places that these manufacturers want to sell their stuff. So you don't even need to set up your own base. But here, you know, we don't get cell, we don't get whatever. So I have to set up my own base and post-process all the data to get rid of all these corrections and get down to that accuracy. That's what this base is. That's this guy here. So I'm going to set him up somewhere over here. I'm going to set you down without knocking you over. Okay, so it's got this big plug. Set it in the corner here. Clip it into this big battery. Without crossing the polarity. Turn this on. Seems to be working. So next is the rover. So for 22 years, right, this is my 22nd year, I used the same rover, an old unit that was ancient when I stole it 22 years ago. This is the first time I'm not using that GPS. All the GPS I've ever done on the glacier with that same unit, but it was a pain in the butt. They'll bring me closer back here. It was clunky. It took a lot of power. You had to carry around the whole battery, like a real battery with it. Pain in the ass. Cables were always breaking. The firmware was so out of date that they stopped making updates, so it thought the date was like 1999. There was no way to correct it except you had to dig into the files themselves after the fact. It's a nightmare. Anyway, so this is the whole thing now. A couple pounds, and it screws onto this handy dandy thing I put on this backpack. So now I can walk around with this, and that's it. And then I've got the whole rest of the backpack for my survival gear. So I'm going to take one of these batteries. I think all this videotaping is sucking down the juice of my phone, and I need the phone for surveying with this thing. So now, I never have to turn this on. Did it in the driveway. All right. See lights? So other than that, the other stuff I'm taking, I've got my tape measure, high tech, right? This is the primary measurement on mass balance to measure how much pole is sticking out. It's still surprisingly easy to screw it up. This is an avalanche probe that's got, I use it for snow depth measurements. There's not much snow here, but up higher there may be, so to take that. And then my field book, hopefully, I got the field book, first aid kit, and yeah, a few other doodads. I'm gonna take a bivy sack and a sleeping pad and a little blanket. I figure if I break a leg or whatever happens, so whether I'm walking or snow machining, that's enough to keep me more or less warm and dry overnight for a night or two, and some snacks and a water bottle. I can survive a couple days. It's not camping at that point, it's just trying to stay alive. hypothermia. It's warm right now, but anytime in August, it's just 30 degrees and raining. So it gets pretty wet and miserable pretty quickly. So yeah, so that all goes in the frame pack once I load it up. And I have to use the phone to see if this is working. So I gotta shut this off. I also gotta charge it up a little bit. Okay, so all packed up. My first snow machine foray, doing some GPS. I stopped here at the plane. Here's the setup so far. I stopped at the plane. The wind keeps getting a bit stronger, so I added some stops here, a few extra ropes, pulled the things down. I added some gust locks too. Where's my gloves? Get those. So, for instance, these things. These were actually wheel chocks I built for my other plane that's on 31-inch tires. So they, typical wheel chocks you see, they're super tiny. They're kind of useless, right? So I wanted something that was going to like be the size of the wheel. So I just glued up a bunch of this foam here. It also makes a great gust locks. Like this, the elevator now can't move, or the rudder can't move, and the elevators are pretty well stuck. I've got a gust lock in the elevator. And also one here, the aileron, and the seatbelt holding the yoke so it can't get too much vibration. So it's not just about the plane flying away, it's also about the wind just shaking the hell out of it, doing damage that you'd really rather not in a place like this. So I think it's good enough to leave. I kind of make things, in my mind, I think, well, if I didn't make it back tonight for whatever reason, would whatever I left behind survive well enough? I think it would survive well enough. You can never do, if you spend all your time packing for hurricanes every moment, you never get anything done. So now we're about to head up into that lower cirque. I can see a couple poles there that you can see it on the video, but I'm going to start surveying there and check things out. A little shakedown for the whole operation if that goes well. And maybe we'll head up to the upper cirque. It's that region up there. A bit more challenging snow machine wise. Might have to switch to going on foot. That platform I said I parked the snow machine on, that also, the real reason it exists is as a bridge. Some of these rivers are quite wide, and when we're, we have a big project here, we got a bunch of people, we're here for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. You're going across these things, these rivers every day. You don't want to be jumping across them if you can avoid it. Once or twice, like on a trip like this, it's one thing, but if you're doing it every day, you kind of want to be a little safer. So I would drag those things, those bridges to the rivers, and then be able to get across easy and then drag them to where we're going to park the snow machine for the winter. But for now, we're just going to go see how it goes, and be quicker to do it on foot, I think, if it's not snow machinable. So that's where we're headed. So we made it a little further up Glacier. You can just kind of see the wings of the plane poking out in the sunshine down there. I just stopped here because I was checking out the other snow machine. I'm going to move this down to the other location, but you can see that this is one of the bridges that I use as a platform. If we get here often enough, it stays on. So this year, if I didn't get here, it'd probably fall off later this year if I didn't get here, because I haven't been here in summer, and I missed 2 summers for various reasons. So 2021 was the last time I was here, so it held up pretty well. I'm pretty happy about it. Here we are in the upper, just entering the lower cirque. Spectacular place. Mount McCall. Downhill. So, I don't know if you can see in the video, but there's 2 poles right there, straight across, and there's 2 or 3 more, depending on how much melt we had up there, and there's the old drill site. So we'll head up there first. This is a little challenging coming down because on snow it's not so bad. On ice, I'd rather approach it from the top down because the snow machine doesn't always want to stay still. But the snow machine becomes really handy because I can stand on the seat to get to the top of those poles, which are often higher than my head. So we'll see how it goes. Next stop, lower cirque. So a little rock avalanche up there, sitting in the lower cirque now. It's kind of out of view. It's behind a little ridge. I have a story to tell at some point. Oh, there, I can see him coming out now. But I'll save that story for later because I'm trying to get some work done here. But the royal we tried to climb up there and up and over, and that didn't go as planned. In any case, I'm here at the site where we drilled a hole into the ice. This is the cable that remains from that. It's going all the way to the bottom. We measure ice temperature here. The string eventually, the temperature measurements eventually stopped because the ice deforms. It cuts the cable. But we got a year or two out of it. So now it serves as a giant ablation stake, right? So the cable goes all the way down through, and as more comes up each year, I just kind of wind it around the station there so I can measure it. This time it broke, but that's okay. You can see this is the 200-meter mark. It just pulled out of that connector there, and you can see how it was in there. So I just measured that distance, and once enough more melts out, I'll continue to tie it up, and I'll just tie up this loose end here. This cirque that we're in now was in the accumulation area. Snow used to pile up here and turn into ice in the 70s and 80s. And then sort of 90s to 2000s, it stopped, it all melted away and got down to bare ice. So where we're standing now is 200 meters of ice. There used to be maybe 10, 20 meters of fern at some point, maybe more in the glory days, 100 years ago. And that fern is older snow, right? Every year the snow line is downhill. Snow line was down by where my plane is, right? So here it was accumulating year after year snow that didn't melt in summer, and the weight of it and the liquidness of it that melts down and refreezes turn that into glacier ice, and that's what forms the glacier as it flows downhill. That's not happening anymore, although the past 5 years, this had been accumulating again. The snow line was way down to the point of the plane again. But last summer and this summer, that hasn't been the case. So just a temporary thing, probably. You know, who knows? These El Niños and God knows what I don't pay attention to. Changes the weather a little bit. So there were 5 years there when we had twice as much snow than we normally did. That doesn't seem to be happening anymore. This winter wasn't a high snow year, and now we're back. It's hard to tell, but this is basically bare ice. It snowed a few days ago, I guess. And so it looks all white, but I'm standing on ice right now. So we haven't had much loss from this cable over this time, past 5 years, because this is kind of in equilibrium, not really gaining, not really losing. But if it goes back to normal, we're going to start losing. So when we drilled here in 2008, I shouldn't say, but I want to say the depth was 202 meters. So we've lost 2 meters of ice here, because it's higher up than the airplane is, and like I said, we got some ice gain in the recent past, or some snow gain in the recent past. So anyway, time to head to the next stations. You can see some poles kind of right there, and sort of one sticking out right there. So we're going to measure mass balance and GPS. So as I was saying, this lower cirque used to be an accumulation area. When those guys left in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, they just left everything behind. Weather stations, of course the poles, because the poles can be remeasured. So as I was going to survey my poles, I came across this one. This is a wooden pole that was put in probably in the late 60s. It may have been a thermocouple site too. I've never seen it before. It melted out this year, I think, for the first time. We had a complete weather station melt out 2008. It's one of the ways we knew this was an accumulation area for a time too, right? Because this weather station just got buried up over the top, encased in ice as the snow turned to ice, and then just melted out again. So yeah, you never know what you're going to find out here. Not much I can do with this one. I'll survey it just for fun and measure it, but we may be able to reconstruct. It's broken off at the top too, so probably can't do much until it's all the way melted out in terms of like recapturing mass balance from 50 years ago. That'd be kind of cool. But my stakes are just over there. You can't see them very well probably, but I'll be heading over there in a sec. Okay, so lower circ poles. This is the what we call the LPL 800 set of poles. See 2 poles here, and maybe you can see a pole there and a pole there. Each of those is put in a different year. So the poles there, that furthest one was where that other one is, the furthest up ones, but the glacier keeps moving down, so we keep putting new poles in. These will probably melt out next year. Like I said, these kind of stick around because they're not really in the ablation area, not really accumulation. It's mostly ablation, but so what I'm going to do now, I've already made the measurements in those 2. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to set this up here and show you how it's done. Hopefully this will stay upright. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. There we go. How about that? So I've got a separate phone here now for it's a little bit wobbly on the snow surface. Hopefully it won't fall out. So you see this pole there and a pole there, snow machine. Measure mass balance with the tape measure and GPS. Just using high-tech electrical conduit from Home Depot. Cut the 3-meter sections, and then there's these, have a friend machine, these little couplers here. So these couplers, you can't really see it because there's a bunch of tape there, but there's just a circlip. The only machining is to put this little circlip so the thing doesn't just send down the hole. So that extends there. I should probably pull this tape off anyway. And then set this down. So when I send the pole, it's quite an operation, especially single-handedly. I have to drill a hole that's 6 or 8 meters deep, right? And then put these 6 or 9 meter deep poles in them. So I tape them together so when I drop it in, the bottom sections don't fall out before the whole works goes in there. So that's what that tape is about. So that, if you leave that tape there, it bumps things up by a centimeter. Not that that's the hugest deal, but why not be as accurate as possible? Okay, one more pole here and then we're off. So this is why I built those bridges and why I parked the snow machines on those bridges and platforms, because things like this tend to appear in summer. Often there's a snow bridge that's strong enough to drive over, but not this year. Right here, right about here, I'd consider it. I know I'd get across. The problem is that bridge could fail and then I'd be stuck on that side. So I think I'm going to deploy a bridge, which will take a little time. It just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Sometimes it forms a tunnel and you can find a roof to drive over, but I walked a good ways down there and didn't see anything. It just keeps getting more and more in size and steeper. See, the slope is stronger here. As you go up there, it's a little more shallow. And it used to be, you know, the stream only just about started here, because now it's draining all that area too. So by the time it gets to here, the stream's pretty big. But in the past, you could almost always find a way across right here because the stream there wasn't much water to carry. So I'm gonna head over there and grab that bridge and see what we can do. So now We are on the other side of the river. This is what we crossed. There we go, sorry. So you gotta be really careful with these snow bridges because at this point they have no strength at all. So I've got that bridge propped on ice on both sides and secured with an ice screw so it doesn't slip out. So it's just about the right amount of, or just about not too much incline to get up and off. So beats the hell out of losing it in there. Next stop, Upper Cirque. So after crossing the big stream, crossed a bunch of smaller ones that didn't really need bridges, and most of the way up the Upper Cirque now, and I just thought I'd stop here. I saw some debris. This is these are sea rations from 1957-58. I'll pick them up on the way down or tomorrow, but sometimes they come out intact. I've actually ate some of them and have more at my house. These are. This one's still intact, a little bit smushed. This one, oh, this one's got a split. Yeah. I'll check it out later. I'm gonna get some work done. You can see some dry cream. These guys weren't vegans. More cream stuff. I guess the cream lasts forever. Yeah, so at some point they left their whole camp up there. So a couple James Ways. I've got photos of the inside. There's piano in there. Some photos from Juneau Icefield. I've plotted where it was from some photos, and I've plotted the streamlines from the glacier flow. I need to think about it again or redo those calculations. It's been 10 years, but it should start melting out soon, like that whole camp, and I think that'll be really cool. I have to, when that happens, I have to get the federales involved because, as it turns out, even though it's just kind of debris, it's, what do they call it? Stuff that's been around for 50 years, you can't just pick up and touch. Even this stuff is kind of like, now that I think about it, I might just leave it because you can get in trouble since I just videotaped it. Yeah, there's some, I forget what some law about not disturbing things after like homesteads that have been around for taking a minute. Anyway, off to the Upper Cirque. Okay, so I made it to the Upper Cirque. No problems. I was thinking on the way up here though, there's no way I would do any of this on any other glacier except McCall Glacier. I mean, I just know where all the crevasses are. I mean, things change, of course, but I wouldn't even consider this anywhere else. I mean, I hopped over 15 crevasses coming over here, but I knew what they were, and I knew they're small, they're hoppable. But now now we got a bit more snow here, so I thought it'd be worthwhile to take a little break and wet my whistle a little bit and cogitate. I can see all the poles I need to survey. There's still no real danger. Like there's no gaping crevasses that I'm going to fall into. I can lose my phone for sure, or twist my ankle, get the snow machine stuck. What I'm more worried about is getting snow machine stuck in a slush swamp, because I'm kind of about as far as I want to go without thinking a little bit. Kind of a flat area, the snow saturates. I can see some recent slush flows, so I know. I don't think it's very deep. I can see how I see a lot more poles than I've seen in a while, and the poles that I usually find, they're sticking out a lot, which means that there's been a lot of melt. So probably almost all of this year's snow, or this last winter's snow, is melted here. So we're back to kind of normal, but not quite. Like back in 2011, 12, 13, there was basically no fern here at all. There's like one little pocket, like less than a hectare. The rest of it was just bare ice. So I know that not deep, far below this is bare ice. But in the meantime, this snow could be there could be half a meter of snow that's super saturated with water. And I'll get the snow machine stuck, and then I'll be up to my hips in water trying to move it out. I just realized I didn't bring a shovel. I thought, oh, what am I going to need a shovel for? There's no snow. This is what I need a shovel for. But I stopped here and I was looking at a feature that I hopped across that wasn't a crevasse. And I thought, what is that? And I kept looking at it some more, and I saw it trace all the way up to the poles I'm going to measure, and I'm going to show it to you here. And I realized it was my snow machine track from May. Here it is right here. So you see this little lump going up and up to those poles. I don't know if you can see the poles in the video, but that's the way snow works. I bet I'll find some more too. That snow machine track compresses the snow a little bit, differentially ablates, and that just keeps happening the whole summer long. I've seen this happen countless other places. I've seen it on river ice, even on, like, I've mapped river ice breaking up, and I can see snow machine tracks in the ice because it just kind of melts down. I saw the same thing on Black Rapids Glacier, my PhD here a bunch of times. It's just weird to think about. 3 months of ablation, you think that snow machine track would have disappeared, but there it is. Okay. I think I'm just going to follow that track and see how it goes. I got there's a bunch of poles out now. It's good. Makes life harder though, because I got to do more work. Usually they're buried. So this area had been accumulating. I'll show a little closer. Like, there's a weather station that's still buried there, and there's some stuff that's still buried because it got buried in those 5 years, like 2016 to 21, somewhere in there. Just lots of snow, more than I've ever seen. But remains to be seen whether there's a trend or not, but it looks like it's 2 years in a row. I think that heavy snow year was an anomaly. I have no idea how the weather systems work here at that level. To say more snow or less snow, but it's good data for somebody that does know how those things work, or synoptic scale, like these NAO, El Nino, whatever the hell they are, things that people study and come up with new acronyms for. The big question is this region of the Arctic getting wetter as climate change? Because warmer air holds more moisture. You've got also the sea ice, less sea ice, more open water, so you got a moisture source. So warmer air, moisture source, wind blowing this way, you'd expect more snow. But yeah, who knows, really. The other thing I noticed too, one of the reasons it's windy here, those lenticulars. I think the wind's picked up considerably since I've got here. I picked today. I was going to come yesterday, but the forecast was for stronger winds than this, so I chickened out. But those lenticulars indicate strong differential, like sort of mountain waves coming over the top here. So hopefully when it's time to leave, there'll be just nice poofy clouds hanging out, making for good pictures rather than the ones that are scary like that. So, but that's a problem for another day. I think I'm also going to need some sunscreen. All right, I will tune back in once I start measuring. Well, I'm at the main weather stations now. This was the spot. We did a bunch of radar and drilling and found this spot right here that I'm standing at was the thickest accumulation zone, the thickest area of fern we could find. This stuff has since migrated down glacier. But at the time, this was the sweet spot of where glaciers were being formed here. And what I'm finding now is stuff that got buried years ago. It's starting to melt out again. I missed 2015 and 16. I was here 2015. We circled, we couldn't land. And then, well, I got fucked by NSF and couldn't make it back in. And it was a transitional time. I didn't have enough money to buy the plane I'm flying now, and I was not going to come back in my plane, which I'd used the year before for a variety of reasons. And anyway, it took a year or two to raise the money to buy the planes I have now to be able to do this. And in that time, that's when we had some strong melt years and strong accumulation years. it caused the main weather station to tip over, to tilt, which I could have corrected if I was here, but then it snowed and buried it, tilted, and then it just wasn't recoverable. Now it's mostly out. So I don't know, in a year or two, if this keeps up, I'll be able to straighten it out and get it going again, but I'll show you what's around. So I have thermistor strings going into the fern. There's a data logger at the bottom of that. Oops, is that better? The data logger at the bottom of that pole. So that's an air temperature sensor. It's long since out of batteries, but I'm measuring fern temperatures to I don't know, 10 meters deep there. That also had a weather station. You can see a silicon pyranometer on it. These are mass balance poles. That pole there was that pole there. So that 20 years later, I put that in last year or 2 years ago. All this stuff was up that high at that time. So another pole melting out there. I think that was another coring site, shallow coring. This weather station, we drilled, you can see that yellow stuff buried there. That was another place we drilled a hole. We took a core out from here and brought it back to civilization intact and got a climate record about 200 years here. And there's a temperature string there as well. Again, it's kind of buried right now, and then there's the weather station. So this pole system, all this stuff is supposed to scooch up the pole and then just add a new pole on top. But it melted out so strongly when you started to tilt, then it got buried. And mass balance pole, that's a whole weather station too that had pollen traps on it. So the 2008 surface is still about 2 meters below us. That's the accumulation we've had over time. And more mass balance stakes over there. That one I put in 22 years ago and starting to tilt out. That started to tilt out 2 years ago. Anyway, yeah, well, time to get to work. A beautiful spot. These mountains here, this slope was all covered with ice 50 years ago, 60 years ago. You can see the remnants of it here, like that. You can see the lighter color rock right up there. That was all ice, these ice veneers. Now, once they disappear, the stream will cut through there and start to drain all this. That's what's happening here. Basically, these are getting bisected. These little streams coming here, that they'll get cut off, and soon enough, this will all be ablation area. It won't be any accumulation at all. There's just not, yeah, things have changed. So anyway, time to get to work. It's almost 5 o'clock. Hope to get back, well, get back when I'm done, if I'm not upside down. Okay. Well, I just finished mass balance in the upper cirque. Feels good. I just thought while I was here, since this is the last place we're going to find any snow on this glacier, I just show you what a little snow probing is doing. So the idea is, if you can see this, here's one of the stakes. You see there's 3 stakes. These are placed, that farthest one was from last year, 23. This was 07. That's how far, that's not much motion going on here. It's pretty slow moving. So probing, it's an avalanche probe. It's super tricky. So like right there, that's 30, 35 centimeters. But if I push it harder, I get down to 90. Same thing, like 30, 35, but I could bust through that. This time I went down to 135. So trying to figure out snow depth here is problematic, because what's happening is I'm going through multiple annual layers. So I'm probing through fern. It's super easy to do. There's not always like a hard surface when you probe down to this past winter's bottom of snow, or actually the previous summer surface, because the whole snowpack is loosening up here. This, you can take a look. I mean, this is great snowball snow, right? All those streams over there, they're streams because they're hitting ice, right? The snow depth is basically 0 there, but here it's not. And over there, there's probably still some fern. What happens is this snow hits, it's a hot day like this, sun melts it, the solid turns to liquid. The liquid now, it's not bound by the matrix as much as it used to be, the snow matrix, so it can drip down. And it drips down, This is early in the spring, like June. It drips down and it finds cold snow because the sun hasn't hit it yet. That warm wave, however you want to phrase it, hasn't propagated down through from the sunshine, conduction down. So the liquid is going faster due to gravity downwards than the propagation of temperature or energy. So it finds cold snow, at which point it says, hey, I'm a liquid, I'd rather be a solid. I'm gonna release a bunch of latent heat and become ice again. And it becomes ice. That happens, by the ton, and you form these ice layers. But these ice layers, every time you're releasing this latent heat, to go from a liquid to a solid, you got to get rid of energy, a lot of energy. And when you lose that energy, you got to go somewhere, right? It's going into the firn, the older snow that's colder down low. That's 1 meter, 2 meters, 10 meters below us. And it warms it up. So much faster than conduction from sunshine can occur, this dripping of meltwater and the release of latent heat can warm the firn. That whole 10, 20, 50 years of accumulation of snow as it's smushing into ice, it can warm that whole package up to 0. That's the warmest it can get. It warms it up to 0 in the space of like 2 weeks. That was some of those buried instruments I showed over there. Those were measuring exactly that. And so there's going to be some great data there. Not only, I forget, 3 or 4 or 5 years worth of it before it got buried, and it ran probably for another year or two. But those thermistors now are probably encased in ice. So once the data logger becomes exposed, I'll fire it back up and I'll be able to measure these thermistor strings, which were in firn, they're now encased in ice. Just to sort of the end member, part of this whole thing, where I said as climate warms, the glaciers are getting colder here, it's all starting right here. When this firn, this old snow from years back, warms up to this dripping meltwater, and it outpaces not only the warm wave, but the cold wave that happened over winter, right? So the ice below it, 5, 10 meters below it, never gets to see how cold winter is, because by the time the cold wave is getting down there, this liquid meltwater is dripping and warming it back up. So the ice beneath our feet, we drilled over there is 152 meters. That ice, when we measured the temperature too, as they did in 1957, that ice was all at 0. It's the warmest ice can get, right? It's a little pressure melting point, it could be a little bit different than that, but it's basically 0. It's the pressure melting point. Because of this meltwater effect, right? This refreezing, this internal accumulation of ice, that meltwater internally accumulates again and turns into ice, and ice lenses. The ice lenses grow and they eventually smush into glacier ice. But the important point is, if there's an important point to the story. That might be an IGY. I gotta go up there and check that out. It's too high for the tent, but there's something definitely that's not mine that's melting out up there looks like a structure. Right, so meltwater. Speaking of what? It's the meltwater over this sponge, this firn. It's snow, it's not ice yet, so water can drip in it and refreeze and create enceladus. Keeps this part of the glacier warm, keeps anywhere there's firn, it keeps warm, right? So remember, the firn limit was down by where my airplane was. That's where it used to be 50 years ago. So all that lower cirque where I showed that one wooden pole come out and the first things I did, all of that was also under firn. All of that ice down 200 meters thick was all warm, all at 0 C, all at the melting point. This whole glacier uphill from the snow line was at 0 C. That ice then flows downhill under its own weight. It gets colder from the top down once it leaves the accumulation area, because now the ice at the top, the surface ice, feels the depth of winter. So the ice starts to cool from the top down. We measure this, right? I'll show tomorrow another thermistor string. We measured to the bottom. It's cold, cold, cold till you get to the bottom. And the bottom was warm. It was warm when we measured it in 2008. It was warm when they measured it in 1975. But now it's getting cold. Why? Because the sponge is disappearing, right? The firn is disappearing. There's no place for this release of latent heat to occur. The matrix is gone. There's just this little patch right here that can generate this warm ice. So all this ice is starting to cool from the top down. That's exactly what we measured in the lower cirque, was that process of ice cooling from the top down. At that time, 200 meters thick, the upper 130 meters, I want to say, don't quote me on that, maybe 150, was cold, below zero anyway. And the lower third, 50, 60 meters was warm. It was cooling from the top down. That was 2008, that was 15 years ago, 16 years ago. It's probably all cold now, right? There's no reason it shouldn't be. So climate warms, the snow line moves up, the firn disappears, this latent heat process disappears, this warm ice disappears, the glacier starts getting colder, and that cold wave hits the bottom, and the glacier no longer slides at the bottom because it's freezing to the bed. That's the story. So that's what I've been working on the past 2 years or so. Now, once I got all these data, I was kind of a backlog, but I got all the survey data produced and in a consistent time series. Kind of a big deal. It was months of effort to try and get all this stuff into one big pile that you could actually look at the trend. And that trend showed sometime about 2010, the lower part of the glacier, we knew it was sliding through winter, even from a variety of other studies, started to slow down. It's just this linear ramp. How slow it's going to get, I don't know, but that's one of the reasons why surveying is so cool right now, is to see that process is going to keep happening further and further up glacier. That's why I want to get these continuous measurements made, so we can actually catch that, like the seasonal influence. There's these seasonal speed ups. Are they going to disappear too? Like, it gets, the glacier moves faster in summer presumably because all this meltwater is hitting the bed and not so much lubricating it, but pressurizing it and making it go faster. If the bed's frozen, what happens to that meltwater? Does it still play that same game? Maybe not. That's what we want to measure. So I'm gonna go, boy, it's also kind of in the middle of a crevasse field that I try to avoid. I might go check that out, or I may not, I'm not sure. Anyway, successful day, a couple poles on the way back, and then 6:30 or 5:30 now, almost, I can't read, 5:45. I don't think I'm going to go down glacier. I tend not to, I don't do stuff, I don't want to go far away from camp late in the day. I want to be heading towards camp late in the day, because something goes wrong, then I want to have a whole day ahead of me to fix it. I haven't eaten all day except for that one burrito. So, man, I really want to check out what that is. Anyway, yeah, good day. Just measured the last pole of the day, I think. There's two more right there. I might save those till the morning. I'm tired. We'll see. If I drive past them, I'll do them. But it's fun to point out. So that's our camp, traditional camp spot on top of that ridge right there. You can see how this was a snow line. I don't think the glacier came up that high. It definitely came up this high, but it never actually got over that knoll. So it's not really a moraine. We call it a moraine, but it's not really a moraine. But you can see that trim line. It just peters out and goes below there. But you see how sunny it is up there, because it's high enough that it doesn't get shadowed by anything except for that hill, which is to the north, so it doesn't get much shadow there at all. Whereas where I'm parked right now, you can see that my plane is in the shadow. It gets in the shadow about 3 or 4 o'clock, depending on the day of the year. And it gets cold in the shadow. So I think, and that area is getting rotten. That was a really good spot 10 or 15 years ago, but I think I'm gonna have to move the whole works up somewhere in here for landing, and I'm gonna put a new weather station in, and anyway, demobilize that one. But I think that's gonna happen kind of here. It'd be a little bit sunnier and the surface is a little better for landing. There's the lower cirque. Snow dome, we call it. That was all ice covered. When I got here, those two Nunataks were completely ice covered. I remember when I first saw the hole they were poking out through. I thought that was so funny. and now they're just big lunatics. I took a photo from the lower one looking back that way. I might do that again today, but this was all ice. Keith skied that. You can't ski it anymore. There's no snow left, no ice left. And that's the upper cirque where it just was. So in the 70s and 80s, the snow line, this would have all been snow still. All that cirque would have been snow from this past winter. It would not have melted this high up yet. And where the plane is, which you can't really see in the shadow, that was all snow. That was all fern. That was all accumulation area. That's where glaciers are growing. So all of the ice beneath my feet here and over there and by the plane, that was all warm ice all the way to the bottom, 0 degrees C. So we call them polythermal glaciers. Not very creative, but there's polythermal. It's more than one. It's not just zero, and it's not just cold, but be more accurate. Like glaciers in the Alaskan range, lower elevation glaciers, certainly southeast, they're all warm everywhere. They're not going to get any colder because the air's warm there. The winters aren't that deep. We get 30 below here through winter. There it's not like that, and there you get tens and tens of meters of snow. That's how the glaciers form. It's not just a lack of, they're at sea level, it's warm, but there's so much snow that you just can't melt it all in time. That's why it accumulates. Here, it's a different story. It's just cold enough that it just doesn't melt, or not much. So yeah, this is what it is now, though. No snow here. Still got some lenticulars over there, though. Still forming. We'll see how it is down by the plane. I think it's time for dinner. Well, it's not quite the end, but it's approaching the end of a very long but productive day, and productive birthday. I couldn't ask for a better birthday. Just getting things buttoned up at camp now. Here's my anchor for the airplane. I'm gonna blow that away. I make it even more skoo-koo too. I got the second snow machine if it really howls, but I've never tried to use it. Pretty well buttoned up. You see the sunshine behind me. That's where I really want to be right now. Definitely a lot colder right here. But what can you do? So, headed towards camp, tent camp, just a little bit further down here. You can see, can you see it? Yeah, call that Hanging Glacier. That glacier used to come all the way down to this glacier. They used to touch. So, yeah, a lot of change since then. That was happening in the 1940s, 50s, something like that. Yeah. Sorry. So I got most things put away. Or I should say I got most things buttoned down. The tent is just a jumble of everything I threw in there. So that's the next project. Got all my water for the night in there, just from a stream. So some tent organization. Download all the GPS data. Make sure it worked, so then I know if I have to do it again tomorrow, which happens. Convert all my inches to centimeters, because I brought the wrong tape measure. And then compare all the mass balance poles, make sure I measured them all right. Sometimes it's remarkably easy to screw this up. And then, I guess you'll find out, but I have my Starlink dish here. I haven't tried to plug it in yet. I will do that as I enter. Oh boy. Getting old. Oh. Place to. I can't even get any further than this. So right here. Oh, fuck. Okay. All right, here we go. Inside. No. Whew. My shoes and feet are soaked. So the way I normally do things is food and stuff, personal stuff on this side, science on this side. Keeps the mayhem down a little bit. That's what I like about this tent. It's big enough. I mean, you can fit a couple people in here, but with just me, I got like a palace. All right, a little organization. Eat some water, make some dinner. Oh, I might still have a burrito left. Download data. And then you'll have to tell me whether these uploaded to Facebook or not. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. About 7 o'clock now, so I'll take another hour or two. Well, it's the end of a long but productive day, birthday. Just finished processing GPS data, had some dinner. Have not yet really organized the tent, but that's the next step, and then it's time for bed. It's 9 o'clock. Wake up at 6, do it all again tomorrow, and maybe be done with it all. I was able to check the weather on my own with the Starlink dish. I sucked that battery down. I wasn't paying attention, so I'm not sure. I haven't been able to upload these videos. See if tomorrow's sunny day, I'll plug in a solar panel in, and maybe there'll be enough juice to do it. But yeah, the weather looks like it sucks after Wednesday. So I might try and finish up tomorrow and leave Wednesday. Even Wednesday doesn't look great, sunny-wise, but this the strong, consistent winds coming from the south, like 30, 40 knots, 10,000 feet. And some days even higher, so it'd be a good day not to be here. Winds can howl through here 100 miles an hour. Hopefully that won't be the case while I'm here with the plane, but we'll have to see. Anyway, time for bed. And tomorrow I don't know, is it today or tomorrow? Let's see, 66, 24. So it's 2024. So I'm 58. Well, could be worse.